We're up to Ois Gimel, the second paragraph. The question of the Maimon now is that since already today we have the Gili of Pnimis HaTorah, which means we have already the insights and deeper reasons for mitzvahs and so on. And moreover, the Neshama after 120 years, the Schar in Gan Eden is Limud Pnimis HaTorah. So what exactly is the Chiddush of Pnimis HaTorah that will be revealed when Mashiach comes? So the answer to that will be understood by prefacing what is meant by the Bikiyas HaNohar, the splitting of the river, that is a prerequisite to Mashiach's coming. That's what we're up to. Vinyam Bazeh, and the Indian is the Hinei B'chiyah, or all B'chidas HaNohar, B'keiches HaNefesh, B'keich HaBina. What is a Noah? What does a river mean in terms of the faculties of the Nefesh? It's the faculty of Bina. Why? Just like a river. So its source is the spring, the underground spring. The Bina, the length and the expansion of Bina. It all begins from the Nikud of Chachma, and Bina expands and elaborates. And it's from there, from the Nikud of Chachma, that the expansion, it's both breadth and length. Actually, there's 4 directions that the idea is developed. But upon him, the main point is the length and the breadth. Lengthening is bringing the concept down, and breadth means the expansion, the application of the concept in various areas. That's a general difference between the length of an idea and the breadth of an idea. The scope is the breadth, and the length is also kind of an application to bringing it down simpler, more practical. Like a moshel and a moshel and the moshel and the moshel and the moshel. That's all the eirach of the idea. So conclusion: Nor is bina. And elsewhere Chassidus mavur shel nor in a machshava. We encountered this to my morim ago. Both these inyanim, that the river is machshava. The same way the river is always flowing, a person is always thinking. But what's the connection between the two, between machshava and bina? Answer: behind the fish hasaga, the bina. Where is this analysis and expansion and development of the idea? How does it take place? It happens through letters of thought. The person has to be thinking in these words and language by which to expand the idea, which, as we'll see later, transcends language. The essence of the idea. The Kudas HaChachma transcends language. Now comes the point. I just want to give you a heads up what's happening here. The point that he's going to make in the course of this ois is that Bina, let's rephrase that notwithstanding the fact that Bina elaborates the Nikud of Chachma, nonetheless, the Nikud of Chachma remains fundamentally removed and separate from the expansion and the elaboration that is the state of Bina. It's not, in other words, like on a physical level, it's not as if that the Nikud itself undergoes a metamorphosis in Bina, as if to say the Nikud is no longer, it's being developed now into Bina, it mutes and evolves into Bina, an evolutionary process of one stage becoming and therefore replaced ultimately by the next stage. Not so. The Nikud of Chachma, notwithstanding how it's received and developed in Bina, remains essentially removed and uncompromised, and remaining, its presence remaining uncompromised by the expansion of Bina. That's the Nakud that he's going to explain, which he elaborates over the next few pages. So I'll ask your indulgence before you feel that you've grasped the idea, to allow the Maimon to develop this for us. But I think we got the outline of what we're clear on where we're going.
So what's being developed if the Nakuda is staying the same?
So this is a good question. So we're going to see. That's all part of what we need to explain. On the one hand, it is Bina does develop Chachma. It's not something else. It's not developing something else. But as we'll see, okay, let's let the mind tell it to us itself. What's critical is that the Nakud of Chachma still remain always consciously appreciated as being not Bina. And that, in fact, is the success of Bina. All right, these are kind of oases that are hanging, I know, in the air, but in the course of the next few chapters, God willing, this will become clear. All right, let's see. It's a journey. It's a journey we're going on now to understand this truth.
Can you rephrase the question in a basically?
There's no question
concerning Bina and Machshava. Bina and Machshava.
There's no question. What question?
I thought.
Well, you mean the question of what something is
correct?
Something is called Machshava. The answer, because Bina, Machshava is integral to Bina. In order to analyze, you need language. You can't analyze without language. So therefore, they are not synonymous. You can think shtus and bavolim too in language. There's nothing to do with Bina, but they are integral.
So that's the end of the answer.
Analyze without language.
That I understand. So that's the end of the answer.
Yeah. So let's continue now. Move on. This was an outline of what's coming, again, to be developed over the next few pages with various mishalim. Move on. She's pashtus v'hamshachad achachma lebina. It's establishing now that bina is it needs language, and bina's analysis, and it's eirach v'reichev. So it is not ein be'ofen. Shenakudas hachachma atzma k'meish nimshachas mispashetes bebina. It's not as if chachma itself now becomes developed. Again, would be an evolution, which would mean that the Nakud of Chachma is no longer in its original state. It's morphed and become into Bina. Not so. There is, of course, this inseparable relationship between the two. After all, Bina is nothing other than the development of Chachma. However, again, just words here that will be developed over the course of the Maimon. What is happening is that it's mislabish, it's invested in Bina, and it's concealed in the levush of Bina, but it remains, it's intrinsic beyond the Bina state. Machshava is a separate garment from, he means from the etzem nefesh itself, the nefesh itself, from where Chachma springs. Where do we see that these? That's why they're called levushim. The idea of a garment means something you invest in and can divest yourself of, just as well. And moreover, garments imply different garments. They're extraneous to the body of the soul. Chachma, this is all relative, friends, but Bina, Bina obviously is part of the makeup of the soul, but it's all relative. These terms of essence and manifestation or garment are all, like everything in Chassidus, relative terms. And we've pointed out in the past, and maybe worth repeating, that this idea of relativity, which governs our understanding of Chassidus, is itself expressive of the unity of it all. We speak of Elikus, and we speak of the Nefesh, that's a reflection of Elikus. And so therefore there's this profound integration of all levels in oneness on all levels. So therefore, there's always a relative answer. It's not Yossi Davis, we mentioned this, as a kid, you learn Chassidus, you come, you ask a question to the teacher, and we learned yesterday, it means this madrega, now means that madrega. But which one is it? Where is this happening? Is this in Atzilus? Is this in Bria? Is it in Akudim, Bevrudim? And the answer the teacher always gives, it's Venzach Vumaret, it's all relative. Not the kid walks away with, got the standard dismissal, depends where we're speaking. It's not a dismissal. It is, on the contrary, the beauty of it all, that this profound oneness within oneness within oneness, all the dargats exist on subtle levels within each other. So here too, we're saying that machshava is a levush nifred, and we're associating with bina. This means that, relatively speaking, bina is separate from chachma in the relative terms, and chachma is much more expressive of the body or the essence of the nefesh. Now, how do we see this? That machshava is a levush nifred, as we mentioned, shari levush machshava v'oifen, because the garment of thought, through which bina operates. Bina cannot operate without machshava. To analyze, you need language, you need thoughts, you need words. So ba'ofen she'efshe milbesh v'lahavshit means elianacher. The speech, about the thought, not integral to the nefesh. You can think this or think another thing. You can analyze one thing or another thing. In fact, the whole notion of analysis means that you've received something that you're analyzing. So that which you've received is outside of the process of analysis. It's a makabel. Bin is a makabel. Here's the idea, now break it down. So it's outside of the world of chachma, fundamentally. Chachma is that place in the nefesh that from where the idea wells up, this original seeker and discoverer of truth. That's the nefesh. It's a seeker of the emes. We speak in nefesh habamisim, nefesh hasichlis, and it's a discover because it seeks subjectively. It discovers the truth. That's the bittul of chachma. That's the nefesh. That's the nefesh is a seeker. But bin is already taking that which is being offered and analyzing it. So there's already this extraneous. It's an outsider within the nefesh, relatively speaking, an outsider to chachma. Moreover, and not only is thought itself, you can think this or think something else, but now looking at bina itself. He's analyzing and he's using particular words. You could use other words to analyze this very idea. Never mind thinking about something else. The very analysis could be expressed in a whole different way. So the very bina, as it fuses with machshava, it's not just machshava as a garment that can be used, letters and words, language can be used for anything. But more than that, even as bina is invested in machshava, so you're thinking, you're analyzing the idea, the original concept, the original discovery. So there's many words you could use, very different words to express and define and develop the very same idea. Actually, just to point out also that this idea, chachma bina is far more readily appreciated when the idea is a very revolutionary one. Everything is relative, but not everyone experiences ever chachma. They're not original thinkers. Or their strength is in give me an idea and I'll develop it. And strength in bina. And to be the original discoverer, obviously there are a few people that inventors and discoverers of novel ideas. The point I'm saying is that the more novel, the more deep the discovery, the more revolutionary the discovery, the more you can appreciate that the language used to develop it can differ enormously. The deeper, the more original, the more transcendent the idea, the more it's given to varied analysis and language and formula and words, etc. And application. All right, so you can move in. it's understood שהמשוחס הסוגה בייסס המחשבה כפי שהסוגה בו ונסלבשה בלבושה. So it's understood that the way the idea comes in machshava, it's no longer the pristine idea, but it's in a whole new world of garments that have taken the idea, and in that world of the garments is the development. But the idea itself, the original discovery, remains essentially and fundamentally and truthfully beyond these particular words or this particular language. Moreover, we're talking about the language that is employed that can be varied and different. Moreover, even Bina, even the analysis itself, is clearly a different world and levush from the nekuda of Chochmah. Why? As I was just saying moments ago, this point, this discovery, particularly again, if it's a very transcendent idea and a revolutionary one, can be expressed to begin with in different concepts. Never mind the same concept in different language, but the svaras, the very ideas themselves can vary differently and all truly expressing a particular expression of the nekuda. Different, not talking different language now, but different svaras, different conscious concepts that would express, a language shouldn't confuse us. A svara means an argument, let's use it that way. Different, not the word, I don't mean argument in conflict, but a different presentation, a whole different intellectual presentation of the idea. The idea lends itself to all different kinds of presentation. Svaras. Never mind language. A whole different approach. A whole different approach in expressing the nekuda of Chochmah, which all illustrates the point that machshava, certainly, even Bina, and the two Bina can't operate without machshava, but Bina is still something else. Bina is the faculty of the soul to analyze. Good, you need language to be able to do that, but it's not synonymous with machshava. All he's saying is that Bina only operates with machshava. The point he's saying is that clearly machshava is obviously a levush to the nekudas ha-chochmah. Bina is a levush. By levush we mean another vessel, another garment, another world. Whatever Bina process you will employ to develop the idea, there's a different ways, different svaras, different eifanim of Bina. So they're levushim, they're separate. All to say, the Chochmah remains and is, by definition, removed from the language and the analysis in which it becomes later invested, but not evolved. It's present in Bina. What is Bina if not the development of the Chochmah? It's ever present, but it doesn't mute and become now Bina. The Chochmah, the Nekudas HaChochmah is fundamentally removed and remains that way. Again, pages of explanation to explain this. Go ahead.
Is the difference between Machshava and Bina that Machshava is Levush HaNifrid and Bina would be more Al Derech Levush HaMyuchad, but not completely Levush HaMyuchad, but it's quite Levush HaMyuchad.
You could say that.
But it's a Levush.
Yeah. Well, listen, Bina, again, is integral to the makeup of the soul. And Bina exists with the person that's learned language or not. What forbid, God forbid, try to imagine a child, God forbid, in this theoretical experience, imagine born without any sensory, deprived of any sensory experience. Nothing. Can't learn language because can't hear or see or feel anything. But the fact is that the Keich Bina is there. It's just not given the opportunity to express itself because the child isn't being taught language or can't learn language. But the Bina is there and the Chacham is there, all the Keichas HaNefesh are there. But Machshava is also a potential to learn language, but the actual language itself is something that's mamish acquired. It's mamish levush. Although we're born with the levush of machshava. So it's also, part of the nefesh, but everything is relative. It's an extraneous part of the nefesh. As you say, in the level of extraneous, there are levels. There's closer, further, as you're saying.
So Bina is the faculty to be able to develop the idea, and machshava is the actual idea itself?
No, machshava is the tool by which Bina expresses itself. Bina needs language to be able to analyze.
What is the idea in itself? If Bina is the
idea,
faculty to develop...
We're going to see later. The idea itself is the discovery of a truth that transcends language. I'll tell you now, it's like seeing something. The moment of Bina, of Chokhmah, that flash of discovery, there are no words, there's no language. It's like being in a foreign, dark room, completely unfamiliar. And then in one blinding moment, the light comes up. And you see something that you've never seen before. That's not, there's no language or words. That's what Chokhmah is. Chokhmah is, there wells up from deep within the Koyach HaMaskil, deep within the Nefesh, the discovery of truth. And the reason that the Nefesh is able to do that is because the Nefesh is a creation of Hashem, who is truth, and deep within the bowels of its being is this intuitive connection and quest for truth that it will discover. And the point we're saying is that that moment of Chokhmah, there's no Bina, there's no Machshava, there's no language. Machshava in the sense of there's consciousness, but not Machshava in the sense of thinking about it, which requires language. It's experience. It's the moment of truth that wells up within the mind, and there's as the comic books would have it, this lightning light bulb that goes on, the eureka moment. I see it, and that's what the person actually would say. And spontaneously he would say, not I understand it, but I see it. That's the true experience of Chokhmah. So it's beyond Machshava, and certainly beyond Bina, which is analysis, which needs Machshava to analyze. You need language, you need words. Okay, this page is coming, friends, about this. So let's suspend our conclusion as to what is Chokhmah, what is Bina, right? Till like 4 pages from now, 4 paragraphs. It is important to ask. We want to get correctly what he's saying at this point. So I'm not saying don't ask. All right, let's go further. Again, since the Nekudas HaChokhmah can be explained in different arguments, want a better word, different presentations. In different presentations, how they move in Shas Beidim, the Bina. So whatever explanation is given, that doesn't encapsulate, that doesn't definitively express what the Nekuda was, because it could be said in another Svara. So it's clear that Bina is a Mahus Nifred min Nekudas HaChokhmah. It's another dimension, and relatively speaking, extraneous to the world of Chokhmah, bound up with the Nefesh itself.
Why can't you just say it's another Levush, like you said earlier?
You could simplify it by that. We're trying to understand what that means. So much so that with the many explanations, that's a simple word, the many explanations of Chokhmah, the person could say such explanations, one explanation can engender and lead to another, and a whole, branching out of explanations, so much so that one can even lose sight of the Nekuda of Chokhmah. Now that's indicative that the Nekuda of Chokhmah is not consciously present. If a Hezbollah can go on a tangent that has no shaykhs to the Nekuda, that just shows that all the Hezbollah, relatively speaking, are a different world from the Nekuda. This idea that this is what it means. The point in the chamber. Be careful, says the Zohar. It's also about another. I only bring two sources here, but they brought other places as well. That be careful that the point remained in the chamber. What does this mean? The chamber is bina, the development, the whole building. Bina is melashon binyan. You build a whole edifice. But be careful, you don't lose sight of the Nakuda and Chachma. Always keep it ever present, because one can build in tangents and rooms and so on. That it's all very nice, but you've lost the Nakuda. Because once you get to the world of Bina, because the world of Bina is, relatively speaking, a different world, you can lose sight of the Nakuda. Now, if Bina was nothing other than the development of the Nakuda, you can't lose sight of it. Bina is nothing other than the evolutionary next stage of the transformation, the mutation of Chachma to Bina. Not so. It's a different world, and because it's a different world, it can go awry. You can develop ideas that you've missed the point, you've gone on a tangent, and you've lost the original point. Even though the ideas you're saying are all very nice, all the explanations, but they're no longer related to the Nakuda. So you have to have the Nakuda. There's this conscious effort that's required to keep the Nakuda in the Heichal, because the Heichal is something other than the Nakuda. Sheidei Nakuda and Ishmeres Hasoga, when we have this conscious effort, which is not natural, because again, they're two different worlds, and you can get lost in space, lost in Bina. Having started from the Nakuda Chachma, still be lost in Bina. So therefore, there's the requirement or the advice, in order to remain faithful to the original idea, to always be conscious of it, notwithstanding the elaboration of Bina. As he goes on to say, when you have.
So, Rabbi, what you're saying basically is that whether it's an example of the building or anything else, what's the point of bricks and mortar if there's no chokhmah behind it? The very reason for those bricks and mortar, or the very reason for anything in life at all, if we, God forbid, use it for the wrong purposes, which have a much greater intention, much greater holy machshava with regard to why it is there for the first place, why we so often lose sight of what it is that is behind the whole concept of why we did anything at all.
Except that in this case, the svara could be a nice svara, but it's not faithful to the Nakuda. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Thank you, Rabbi.
Yeah. So even in the desirable scenario, where the Nakuda remains forever guarding and present and hovering, as it were, to ensure that the expansion of Bina is not taken in a direction that no longer is expressive of the Nakuda. So you have this, even in the scenario where the relationship is tight and close, and the person doesn't lose sight of the original vision, as there's a vision. As he develops and builds, it's always faithful to the original vision. Nonetheless, the building and the vision are not synonymous. It's got to be kept in line with Chachma. But the Bina is another world. It's another garment that Chachma is invested in. A garment implies something else that the body Chachma is invested in. In fact, conceals it, because in the world of analysis, it's not the world of vision and discovery and the Kudas HaChachma. It conceals it, hence the need for the conscious to be wary and to always be aware of and revisit, to the degree that that's possible, to the Kudas HaChachma in our process of expansion, so that the edifice that we built is faithful to the original Kudas HaChachma. It may be a nice edifice if we're not faithful. I'm not saying it's not nice or valuable, but it's not it could well be not the original vision. And if the intent is that the original vision be expressed, then that's not natural. The evolutionary process is natural. Just let nature take its course in evolution. The original state will evolve and become the second state. Don't have to worry about it. It goes on its own. Here you do have to be concerned, because Chachma and Bina are two different worlds. And therefore there has to be the effort, as it were, the awareness, the consciousness, to make sure we don't lose sight of the Nekudas HaChachma. Let's go a little. Okay, we'll continue Be'ez Hashem tomorrow. Yeah? Okay, we're just starting this rant. I told you, there's pages on this to come. And various mashalim from the Nefesh and from the world at large. I already said one, Re'iyah versus Shmiya, which will be the final mashal.